Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mayor Chris Coleman from the City of St. Paul. I'm joined by mayors from across the state of Minnesota to once again demonstrate that we are, in fact, one Minnesota. And whether you are a small city, a medium-sized city, or a larger city, that we have basic duties and responsibilities as leaders of our communities to make sure that we provide basic public services, whether that is police officers or firefighters, whether that is our librarians or folks that are working to make sure that our streets are safe, whatever it may be. We have an obligation to make sure that we deliver on that promise that we have made to our residents and our constituents. For many years, we have been making a case and making it very clear that local government aid continues to be a key component of the ability of our cities to be able to carry out our duties. In the city of St. Paul, as I have pointed out before, if you took all of the local government, if you took all of the property taxes that we collect in the city of St. Paul, it would only cover our police department and just barely at that. That wouldn't pay for a firefighter, it wouldn't pay for any worker working in our parks or our libraries, it wouldn't pay for a city attorney's office, it wouldn't pay for any number of critical services for the city of St. Paul. And if you look at the amount of local government aid that has been reduced, we are still continue to be significantly below the number that we would have been at had it not been for the cuts that began in 2003. The restoration that has occurred on several occasions has just been barely a part of the loss that we suffered in 2003, 2004, and we are nowhere near the amount of resources that we need to be able to do what we need to do as leaders of our community. The fact of the matter is the state of Minnesota has a budget surplus. Local government aid makes a very small percentage of the total budget for the state of Minnesota, about 2%, maybe even a little less. We are asking, as mayors, again, from cities all across the state of Minnesota, for the state legislature to act on what we believe was a good start in the governor's budget of an additional $20 million in ongoing funding for local government aid. We think that, again, this is just a start. We think it is getting us closer to the restoration of local government aid before the previous cuts, and we would ask the legislature to act on that. The fact of the matter is, often I hear from legislators that cities are not spending their money wisely or not doing what they need to do, but I ask you to look at any one of the budgets of any one of our cities. I've had business leaders come in and kick the tires of my budget. I have had outside agencies. I have residents weigh in. The fact of the matter is we are running lean operations in cities across the state of Minnesota, and we cannot continue to do that. We need the additional local government aid just to make the basic commitment that we have made to our residents, to protect our communities, to help our communities grow, to help our businesses flourish, and to help everyone live in a community that they're proud to live in.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. It's a pleasure to represent the City of Duluth as we advocate for increased funding for local government aid. Over the course of the years, we have seen funding fluctuate a bit, and every year it feels like it is a political discussion of how local government aid is or isn't going to be impacting cities around the state. And I'm here to say that the local government aid we get from the state of Minnesota is 35% of the budget for the city of Duluth. We receive $29 million of an $82 million general fund budget. We use those dollars to provide police and fire and libraries and parks, streets, public safety, all sorts of those elements. We also use it for our comfort systems and our utility delivery to 86,000 residents. But in addition to that, Duluth has a really important part in the northern region as a regional center. We have 86,000 residents that we serve every day with these dollars, but we also serve over 40,000 daily visitors. These are people who rely on the city of Duluth for their employment, for their education, for their healthcare, for tourism, for retail. We see that investment from the state of Minnesota as a recognition of the important value that a regional center plays. So we provide these services to thousands of people every day. We welcome them into our community because we love the services that we provide to people. But it does come at a cost. So if we were to take that local government aid, it would be our entire police budget, including our public works budget, or you could look at it as our entire fire budget and our entire libraries, parks maintenance, and city clerk. I mean, this is a substantial investment that the state makes on behalf of cities. It's critical for us. We value it. We use it very, very well. I really like how Mayor Coleman talked about the transparency of a public budget, because it is true. It is one of the leading values of a mayor, is to be very prudent with the public resources that you get. There is no question that mayors are very cautious about how we use public dollars to further our communities and ensure that we are good, safe workplaces that provide reliable services to our residents. So I am here in support of these mayors and in support of the request to maintain and grow LGA funding for cities across the state. And I do want to thank the governor for his vision and setting the bar high, and I think reasonably so, but ensuring that there is growth in local government aid for cities across the state. Thank you.
I'm Mayor Tom Kuntz, City of Owatonna, Minnesota. And LGA is very, very important to all cities, but especially Owatonna. You know, the essential services of the police and fire and library, as everybody has said, is very, very important. Back in 2006 till 2017, we're down $900,000 in what we receive from local government aid. And if you think our fire department and our police department is going to stay in Owatonna and stay with those 2006 wage structures, no way, no way. We're going to be a training ground, and everybody's going to continue to move on. So that lack of $900,000 that we got from local government aid just goes back onto the taxpayer, and the taxpayer has to subsidize that and pick that back up. You know, one of the most important things in the city of Owatonna is we're 160 years old, and infrastructure is very, very important. You look at bridges and roads and those type of industries, those type of things, it's hard to maintain. And when you start spending $1.5 million on road repairs and stuff like that, losing that $900,000 is very, very difficult to absorb. So I'm hoping that the people can get together and give us at least that $20 million. That's just a small amount that what we need, but that's a start. And it is all I can say, ridiculous that we don't have more local government aid when there's a budget surplus. So thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Rita Albright, and I bring greetings from Bemidjigamog, Boozhoo. Bemidji is the home of Paul and Babe, first city on the Mississippi. And of course, like Mayor Larson said about Duluth, we are also a regional center, only at a little bit smaller scale. And I want to say that local government aid is a very important part of our budget, but not the whole budget. We don't count on local government aid for everything that we need. Our population is about 15,000, but in that 60-mile radius of Bemidji, we serve a population of 100,000 people. And like Mayor Larson, we're a regional center where we have a net gain of people coming into our community every day to work and to recreate and to go to college, go to the healthcare system. And that's one of the reasons that local government aid is important to regional centers. We also are an area that has low tax capacity in two ways. One is our median family income in Beltrami County and in Bemidji is probably $12,000 to $15,000 lower than the statewide average. And so our ability to raise taxes on our citizens is lower. The other thing that is true in a regional center like Bemidji is that the number of parcels in our community that are taxable is only 50%. That means half the parcels in our community are tax exempt. The university, schools, nonprofits, government center, the faith community, all of those we can't collect any taxes on them. And so that makes it really difficult. And I think that it's time to restore LGA to its 2002 limit, or level, I should say, and increase that 45.5 million is the recommended increase, which would get it back to the 2002 level. With this $1.65 million budget in the state this year, I think now is the time to restore funding. It's really difficult to understand why Greater Minnesota legislators are not willing to do that, because nearly 96% of cities in Greater Minnesota and more than 89% of all the cities statewide receive LGA. Mayors don't buy into that rural-urban divide that people have been talking about. We support one Minnesota where everyone counts. LGA provides equity across the state so cities like Bemidji, St. Paul, Duluth, Owatonna, Fergus Falls can provide the services that our citizens need because we share the values of public safety. We share the values of reliable infrastructure, so when you flush the toilet, it goes away. When you get drinking water, it's clean. When your stormwater is managed, it protects our surface waters, our lakes and rivers. So we use LGA for all of those things, recreation, library, streetlights, snow removal, the list goes on. We're asking legislators to support LGA. It's the Minnesota thing to do.
And thank you, mayors, for being here. I'm very glad to be able to be a part of this event today. And I want to thank Mayor Coleman for bringing this group of mayors together around this issue that is so vital to the success of all of our cities in Minnesota. Too many times the opponents of LGA paint this issue as a political or regional or partisan or geographical issue, but it's not. This is a Minnesota issue. It's an issue of ensuring that all cities in Minnesota are viable places to live, raise a family, and start a business. Providing adequate police and fire protection, maintaining safe streets and bridges, and clean public parks is not a Democrat or Republican value. It's not a rural or an urban value. That's a Minnesota value. As mayors, we understand the balance that is needed between providing for the growth and livability of our communities while being fiscally responsible to our taxpayers. LGA is critical to maintaining that balance for our cities. Yes, we need to be concerned about the next property tax statement, but we also need to be concerned about the next generation. In Fergus Falls, LGA means we do not have to decide between public safety and public parks. In Fergus Falls, LGA means that we can maintain a police department of 23 officers, but we can also maintain a 21st century library. LGA means that we can maintain a fire department, a paid volunteer fire department of 40 members, but we can also maintain 440 acres of public parks. So I stand together with these mayors urging the legislature to increase the LGA funding by $20 million. Because when we're talking about LGA, we are truly talking about the viability of our cities.
Thank you all everyone for being here today. I'm so proud that all these mayors are here and that Mayor Coleman brought us together. North Branch, Minnesota is not like some of the other cities here today. We have 10,126 residents. I think it's gone up. But the LGA for North Branch, as with other cities, is critical to how we are able to govern. It seems to me that there's a lot of wanting to take away local control this past year and then this legislature. And we are really disappointed in the elected officials of our area who promised that they would stand up for our cities and local control. And this is the second time I'm standing here in a month because they continue to go against those promises. What 15% reduction in North Branch means is we will not have a fire department, it will be gone. We will not have planning and zoning or a parks department, they will be gone. And if we want that to stay, then that means our police department, which is already 5 shy of being a functioning police department, will have to go down 40%, and public works will go down 70%. That limits our ability to govern, and like many cities in the state, our taxpayers cannot afford any more money to pay. We have a housing shortage. We have people that can't find a place to live in our area. We have manufacturers that can't find people to work in their companies. So I'm asking today that we restore it also. Frankly, the 20 million, probably not enough. I think we also need to go back. And I think we all need to remember that we are one Minnesota, and that when one city suffers, other city suffers too. So thank you.
My name's Mike Cooley. I'm the mayor of Worthington, Minnesota in southwest Minnesota. LGA makes up 45% of our budget. This is the single most important tool our city and the legislature has to hold down local property taxes. Communities must fund adequate law enforcement, fire protection, water and sewer systems, streets and bridges, and quality of life amenities so we can attract workers and residents to our communities. That's becoming more and more important. Funding for LGA has still not reached the levels of 2002. That's 15 years ago. With budget surpluses sometimes over $1 billion in the last few years, we could surely find $45 million to restore LGA to levels of the 2002. And with the city of Worthington, we're 10 miles away from the Iowa border. We're 50 miles away from the South Dakota border. And it's critical that we keep our local property taxes low. We've had 2 school bond referendums that have failed. And the city has tried to hold down property taxes so that the school bond referendum has a chance to pass. You know, and so whether you live in Thief River Falls, City of St. Paul, or Worthington, this is the best tool to hold down local property taxes. And on a separate note I'd like to end with, I'd like to offer my thanks to the Mayor Coleman of the City of St. Paul. We all understand his love for the City of St. Paul, but I've heard from many mayors across the state of Minnesota that he lots of times is the first call to a mayor in a community that maybe has had a shooting or a natural disaster, and offering his advice and support. And so that is critical, you know, that we have someone in the size of the city of St. Paul that cares about greater Minnesota. Thank you.
Folks, I'm not a mayor. I'm Jennifer Munt with AFSCME Council 5. We're Minnesota's largest union of public workers. Our members, 43,000 of them, live or work and pay taxes in every city in our great state. Now, Minnesota is known for its high quality of life in our cities. That doesn't happen by accident. That happens because we do the work. We do the work that makes people want to live, work, and raise a family here in Minnesota. To give you an example of that, our capital city has some of the strongest libraries in the state. Our members work there. Our library workers offer free and equal access to a world of knowledge, no matter what your age, income, language, or background. Parents bring their kids for story time. Students come to the library to do their homework. Job seekers come to use our computers, and new Americans come to learn English. Library workers consistently reinvent their services to meet the demands of the information age in our diverse community. We help our patrons find the information they need to learn, prosper, and have fun. Last year, at 13 libraries, our library workers helped patrons check out more than 3 million books and movies. Our libraries are being used more than ever despite declining state aid to cities. We can't satisfy our community's hunger for knowledge as the state reduces our local government aid. It's hard to deliver world-class services when the state shrinks from its commitment to local government aid. That aid ensures that everyone, no matter where they live, has a right to get vital city services at a fair price. Without state aid, we'd have to lock our parks and libraries and lay off police and firefighters. That's how they do it in Wisconsin. Minnesota is a beacon of hope, but hard work continues. With the session deadline looming, we're here to ask the legislature to boost state aid to cities. Today, as the mayor said, 89% of cities statewide receive the aid. No state program does more to improve the quality of life or the economic competitiveness of cities in greater Minnesota. Unfortunately, the legislature's tax bill fails on LGA. The joint House and Senate bill for taxes includes a $6 million one-time increase for 2018. That amount is not enough to cover inflation, and even that paltry increase disappears after 1 year. Local government aid matters to urban and rural residents. It creates stronger communities with parks, libraries, police, and fire protection. It prevents local government layoffs, and it holds down our property taxes. Now, Governor Dayton has already vetoed the tax bill. AFSCME supports his decision. We ask Governor Dayton to demand a significant and permanent LGA increase before he signs the final tax bill.
Hello, I'm Dan Ryan, City of Brooklyn Center, Mayor Pro Tem. I just want to reiterate what other mayors have mentioned here today about the importance of LGA. And I represent an inner ring suburb, one of the older suburbs in the Twin Cities. Faced with the costs of replacing our aging infrastructure, LGA is vitally important, not only for us to be able to keep our levy the lowest possible level, but also to diminish the impact of the special assessments that go out to our folks when we do those street utility replacement projects. And I think it's inconceivable that the legislature cannot find the revenue to restore LGA to the 2002 levels in a year of this large touted surplus. So I would urge the conference committee to revisit the bill and to support the governor's recommendation. Thank you.
We have some new faces here we don't see much, and we have some who have seen for a while. He's given the same message probably 15 years now. What's different now? Is there anything different?
Well, what's different is the same. The fact of the matter is that we have continually explained the need for local government aid, whether you are the capital city or your regional center or your ex-urban or suburban community. It doesn't matter what part of the state you're in. It is a vitally important thing. And what is different now, if anything, is the tax bill that didn't get passed last year cost the city of St. Paul $3 million, just in that failure to come to an agreement on that. When you look at the numbers that we have in terms of a surplus, there is an opportunity here that perhaps we haven't seen in a while to do something significant relative to local government aid, and this is a good time to ask. The governor's proposal was a good start. The bill that was passed by the legislature is absolutely inadequate to address any of the needs that we're facing.
Where should the money come from to increase LGA?
Well, I think if you, I don't have a, sorry.
You have some people back there.
Yeah.
No, that was just good.
No.
Go for it.
Look at that. I would leave to the devices. I think the governor's bill, I think, outlines that, and I would suggest that that's a good start. But again, when you have 2% of the state budget that has such an incredibly significant impact on our ability to deliver services across the state of Minnesota, it's not too hard, in my opinion, to find the resources that would be necessary.
Sometimes in the past, when the legislature has bestowed an increase in government for local government aid, they've attached levy limits to that increase. I wonder if that's been under discussion this year, and what your group would think about some sort of a bargain that would involve levy limits this time.
Well, I won't speak for everyone here, but let me just suggest that levy limits are just another preemption, another form of preemption. And for those legislators that have continually said, as a way of passing the buck, that the local government should be able to decide what's best in the interest of their community, that a local levy limit simply is another extension of that kind of philosophy of saying one thing and doing another. The fact of the matter is, even if we got the $20 million that was in the governor's bill, we would still be woefully inadequate in terms of the resources that we need to deliver the services that we have, and we're continually struggling to be able to make up the deficits that we have in our community. And we're continually significantly short of the 2003 levy that would have been, or local government aid that would have been delivered had it not been for the cuts back then. And so what they want to do is they want to give us a little. They don't want to give us anywhere near the resources that we need. And then they want to tell us how to run our communities. That doesn't seem to me in the best interest of what the state needs. Anybody else want to?
Levy limits and reduction and control of levy limits are totally unacceptable to most cities.
Can you give us a specific example of what you would have to stop doing if you had the Republican written bill in law.
Stop doing?
Yeah, stop.
Well, I can say a few things. I mean, so there's a few versions out there. I can tell you that the $29 million that we get, if it doesn't go up a lot, right? So I wrote these numbers down. In 2003, we were at $26 million a year. In 2007, we were at 27. Now in 2016, we are at 29. So we are not seeing the increase that is comparable to the increase of providing services to people. So I can tell you that that $29 million has got to be stretched further and further and further every single year. We employ over 850 people in the city of Duluth who provide these core city services. Over 80% of my budget, actually I think it's about 84% of my budget is people. That's it. The rest is, there's some computers, there's some fire trucks, there's some things like that, but we are in a people-centered business. That is what cities do. So in specific to the Republican version that's out there, or the Senate version maybe that you were referring to, if we don't continue to grow in our LGA, and if it's just a one-time or if it's a cap, it is kind of kicking this can further down the road, and we will have to make cuts. Over 50% of my budget is public safety, and we have strived for many, many years to really protect those core city services, and it has impacted the way we provide libraries services. It has impacted how we ensure that there are safe, clean, wonderful parks in every single neighborhood. It has an impact already. So I think our ask today is to consider the increase as something that cities really need to be able to continue to provide the services. And then in reference to your question about levy, I feel like communities have a levy limit already. You can artificially prescribe one, but the reality is we know as mayors that your community has a levy limit. We don't want to bump up against that either. We struggle every year as leaders to put together a budget that can meet everyone's needs, and to have that a limit artificially imposed without a value of what else you can do around that doesn't make a lot of sense to me, because we know the community is not going to go with us on a levy limit that would meet any kind of cuts in LGA. They're going to let you know. The public has a levy limit, and they let you know about it.
Before you leave, to follow up on what you said.
Yeah.
Do you know how many employees the city had in 2002 or 2003?
Yeah.
Reduced them?
Yeah, oh yes, I can give you those numbers, Don. Yes, so I have been in office, this is my second year, and prior to me, there were significant cuts in staffing, and I would be happy to get those numbers to you. It would take just a minute for us to get those to you before we leave the room.
Is that true for the other cities? Significant cuts in numbers of employees?
We're looking it up. So
It appears that the problem isn't legislators from St. Paul or Duluth or even Brooklyn Center. That the issue may be with the legislators who represent some of these other mayors. Can you explain why you think your message is not getting across to them? What are the bigger political issues that they're more interested in than perhaps this issue?
I think for me, as a mayor in Greater Minnesota, it's not getting across after they're elected. So they run and they make promises and people go out and vote, right? Because we all want to believe what someone says is how they match. Then they get into office and all of a sudden I'm up here talking about local control getting taken away when they all ran on control should be at the local level. In North Branch, we haven't taken care of our roads in close to 14 years. And as many of you know, you either pay $8 a linear foot to take care of your roads or $300 a linear foot to replace them. That's where we're at now in North Branch. We have fire trucks that break down. Our fire department serves outlying cities. When a truck breaks down and can't get to the fire, that's a problem. And we can't afford to replace that truck. So for me, this absolutely is a safety issue. I'm a mom of 5 kids. If there was a problem at my house, I want a police officer there. We're one of the cities, I don't know if anyone saw YouTube a couple years ago, that tried to contract out their police department. It was before I was elected, and the citizens and the businesses in North Branch said, we'll pay for it. We want it. But that doesn't go far, and we don't even have enough police officers. So I'm saying that we need leaders that match. So if I go out and campaign on an issue and then I do something opposite, I hope I'm never elected again. And I think that's the problem in North Branch.